Welcome to the pre-show, everybody. Chris Courtney here, New Pragmatic. We got a pretty good day today. Well, I hope you're having a good day. What am I saying? Pretty good day today. It's always a great day when you're here. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, so to speak. We got a pretty busy morning this morning. So I'm gonna come out of the gate pretty quick. I think Katie, Eve, James, a rare James sighting. Welcome back, James. Katie, Eve, Kara, and James are all here this morning. So we're going to jump into all of that, and just as soon as Couchbot fires. On the design front, it's a relatively normal morning out there. I can't think of. Obviously there's still political unrest, and it's 2020. So it's a normal morning for 2020. Okay, it's just a chill morning in 2020. There's nothing on fire. There's no imminent threat of disease at the door. So everything's up. I am. What am I doing right now? Well, I'm in the midst of writing a lot of curriculum. That's why I should paraphrase. The world might be burning around me. I'm so focused on curriculum, I just wouldn't know. That's the truth. There's a lot of great Figma plugins that have come out recently. One of which addresses a lot of responsive concerns. Basically, where you can take frames and I think it's leveraging auto layout. Or no, not auto layout. I think it's animations. It's leveraging animations, and if it works like I think it works, and I have to be completely honest with you, I have not dug into it enough yet. It's a game changer, and this is again the plugin community that's around Figma. It's all user based, and the things that you see in there, people are working really hard on. So what I would love for you to do is, if you find a plugin on Figma that you like, I would love for you to go talk about it openly. There's some plugins that I like that don't get a lot of love, and I try to send thanks and kudos online via Twitter or Facebook or whatever to those creators, because otherwise, how would they ever know that anybody was using their stuff, or how would their great work ever be found? So do that, and the good news is Couchbot fired. So I will stop monologuing. We'll get this underway. Greetings, one and all. Chris Courtney here, New Pragmatic. It's time for the feedback loop. We're going to take your questions rapid fire and try to get you some answers this morning. I've got Katie, got Rebecca. No, not Rebecca. Sorry, Rebecca's not in here today. But Katie and Kara, James, and Eve are in here with submissions. So we got a couple of Fresh Market. We've got a case study, and we've got a couple of reworks. So let's go ahead and jump right on in and get this started. Katie's up first. First in, first up today. So Katie's reworking a couple of exercises, and she's got two here. Last we checked, and I want to. Eve tipped me off to something the other day. And did I already lose it? I probably already lost it. That's one of the problems. I can't actually read, folks. I just can't read. No, it's that gets rid of the guides, or not? Doesn't get rid of the guides. What is the quick key for the guides? View. Why? No. Where's guides? I know rulers is R, so that's that. Oh yeah. Control G. That's right. Control G. Eve tipped me off to that the other day. I honestly didn't know that I could do that quickly. So Control G. Thanks Eve. So here's the rework, And so Katie's in here, and as you can see, you've got your button, and it looks like you're basically saying, okay, I'm gonna like even it up here. It appears that you're trying to get it to like align, and the fact that it doesn't directly align it isn't a huge issue. These are things that I will work on as you move forward. But the selections here are nice; they work together well. This is a bit of information architecture, and honestly, if you're trying to get it to align, well, I honestly don't necessarily know. It looks like that's, well, this should very easily go down to 0. I'm not sure why this button is, oh, interesting. Oh, it's because, okay, never mind. You had fixed height. So if you got fixed height, you can drag it. But that's essentially how you would get that to align. Typically speaking, I use auto height, so I can just toggle and move it like that. But fixed height is fun, and you can switch back and forth between the two. I think I need to do more videos on auto layout. Now we've got Taco John here. Taco John is interesting because now we're in this situation where we've got space around. Okay, and I want to imagine this. I want to imagine this as if there were 2 of the Taco Johns side by side. Okay, and so let's put this one. Whoa, what is that? Oh wow, Figma just kind of crapped the bed. Whoa. Okay, Figma is upset about something. Maybe it's the fact that these are locked and I'm trying to move them. I don't know. Looks like that was it. Okay. So we've got these 2 things side by side. If this becomes Taco John and Bobby's, what happens here? Does this just expand up? And then let's just lock that. Let's lock that bad boy down so we can get to work here. And does this expand down? Okay. And what we're looking at here is, okay, what happens when this information grows? All right? Because these things have to be side by side. Essentially, you're going to want consistency. Okay? So if this one gets long, as it has here, you're going to want consistency, and that means you're probably going to want to have maybe this button stays right where it is, and you give that space back. Maybe this drops down to where they're in alignment. Okay, so again, this is what happens when we begin thinking about things in terms of information as it appears with other information, and this is super important to think about, because every design, like the apps on your phone, the websites that you interact with, the checkouts that you have at a supermarket, they all have variable information, which means that the design has to be accommodating to different types of information coming into it. Okay, you won't always have items, names, and whatnot that have the same length. So what do you do when 2 of those items are side by side and one is short and one is long? You can't just shrink them down. You can't just move them all around, because what happens when this starts moving around is you get visual inconsistency, and it becomes very, very hard for the viewer's eye to track where the information is going to show up. So that's why you want to always lock that information down so that it has a common starting point. This is the same principle as that we use with paragraphs, and that's why you see very few paragraphs that are centered. Centered paragraphs are a sin, basically. They're a visual no-no. And you can get away with short amounts of centered text like this. This is fine. If you wanted to design it this way, it's fine, okay? But if this was long, if this was like book length, and it was centered, you would burn the book because it would be very difficult to read. Same thing applies to placement in visual design. If this is jumping around, this is going to become a problem very fast, okay? So you want consistency with where these items are lining up. And I think once you get to that point, you're going to be fine. Over here, this is a little simpler, okay? So here you have this restaurant, and if we came down and let's try to oh, that's the card listing still. I need task 4. So I'm just going to hide these for a second. Let's pretend for a second that this was duplicated up, okay? And now if you have Taco John and Bobby's, it's not an issue, right? So just understand, like, this information works great side to side. Now there are inconsistencies that I tend to focus on when it comes to placement. So I'm just going to put a rectangle around this. Like, you've got a gutter here of 10 to the side. You want a gutter on the other side to be the same. So what that means is this, or this information, would move over to touch that. And this pre-order, I'm not sure you would need the pre-order here, like the word pre-order. You might just use the arrow, or you might just say pre-order and put some information behind that. But this has logical guides to the side, which align with the human interface guidelines. We link to those throughout the program. We're not diving in deep to that yet, but it's important that you realize that it does exist for a reason. And basically what we're trying to do is say the phone that you're using is, is variable width, because if you're on Samsung or if you're on an Apple, different width. But regardless, there's a little edge to it, okay? Apple here, we got 10 on each side. I think Samsung might be 12. So very, very, very small differences, but they're even. They're always even, okay? That's the point. The point is you want even spacing, okay? So if you can do that, you're going to be much better off, all right? Now, because I've peeked ahead, what I just said probably is going to impact your thinking about how you handle this. Because obviously, if this information needs to have common spacing, if this information needs to have common sizing, then this isn't going to work, right? Because obviously, we got it from here, a Tribe Called Quest. Like, you've got a Tribe Called Quest at 12. You've got this at 13. I'm not sure why this would be different. So that part is fine, all right? The other thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want like your stars here, and I'm just going to pull comments off the side. It does not matter. You're going to pull stars down for the weekend, all right? So you want that in the same spot. Again, I'm trying to help you with like consistency here. This inside of this box, this information is at Y16. Here it's at Y20. We want it to be the same, but it's here that we have the problem. The weekend is at 24. We got it from here. And actually, the problem here is the name of the artist and the title are reversed. Okay? The weekend is the artist. The title is behind Beauty Behind the Madness. We got it from here is the title and the artist is a Tribe Called Quest. So the information, imagine if this information was coming from a database, the information is going to populate the same from one to the next. So this is really a Tribe Called Quest would be at 24. So, all right, and you've got it in bold. So I'm going to change it to bold. You've also got these in different fonts. Okay, this is Helvetica. This is Roboto. So what we need to do is these need to be the same. Okay, so Roboto, and that's Roboto 10. This is Roboto 11. All right, so those are now the same. This is Roboto. That's Helvetica. I'm just going to change this to Roboto. Okay. The bonus you get there is it's a little smaller. If we look at where the weekend is placed, it's at 33. Here, this is now at 33. So we flip that around. We've got it from here. Is the name of your album? You're using Roboto at 13. This is Roboto at that's Helvetica actually. Roboto 13. So now this is in alignment, okay? Basic alignment. I'm looking at this 112. This is 116, so I'm going to move it to 112. Okay, this is in basic alignment together. Although something's, it's like there must be a box around this. So I'm just going to move it up a little bit to visually align it. Anyway, this is getting into the area, but we just talked about on phones that this typically has like some space, down the side, right? So Tribe Called Quest is going to like bleed over into that edge, and we don't want that. So you're probably going to want to adjust this down to say 22. That works much better. But guess what? If you do that, you also need to adjust the weekend down to 22 as well, because these two things are going to appear on top of each other in an app. Okay? Just assume, and yes, if you're going to have that line, you need to have, I don't know, it's like there's a line there. Okay. There we go. That line wants to live in both of these. Actually, the best thing I can do is just copy it, because these are two different frames. Okay, so now these are in some form of alignment. One thing I would point out is that this is now really tight to the edge over here. All right, because now we have this micro space. Edward Tufte refers to macro and micro, and this would be interior space. So this is micro, and now we're beginning to see these two things come together. Okay, but you need consistency, and that's one thing I would say. If the weekend is all uppercase, and I can't tell if is that how it came over? Okay, the weekend did not come over all uppercase. All right, so I'm guessing that is a stylistic decision that you've made. So if that's the case, then what we have to do with the Tribe Called Quest is go, well, all the artist names are uppercase, so I've got to make this uppercase. And when you do that, now Tribe Called Quest goes all the way out, and you're like, well, I can't have that, so I guess this has to be 18, and I guess this has to be 18. Okay, because they have to be even. Okay, Roboto. They have to be even. The other thing you could do is you could say, okay, well, I'm going to have these be the same, but this is going to kick over. All right, well, now you have a concern here, right? So these are the considerations that I need you thinking about as you're going through information architecture, because this information, the way it's structured, like names and titles need to be equal throughout. You also need to leave space for things that are of variable length, because if you're not, you're going to end up with instances where it's just going to break. Okay, so and also this is like if you went into a whiteboarding exercise and you begin to lay this out for your development team, they're familiar with apps and websites and how data is typically displayed. It's displayed. Data is displayed equally throughout, and you don't say, oh, I'm going to design this field one way and I'm going to design another field of the same information directly below it or beside it a different way. It's going to be consistent. We create one shape. So if this is the shape that we create that shape and we duplicate it over and over and over and over and over again, and then we pour information into it. Well, the way that this was when we first came to it, there's no way that would work. Okay? So let's go down, and obviously you can tell right away where the problem is. Okay? And first of all, some of this is just in how it's displayed. All right? So here you've got like 2016's up here in the corner, and that's creative. But if that's why is the year not with the weekend? Okay, up here in the corner. When we look at like where progressive jazz rap is, it's below the band name. But here R&B soul is above the band name or the artist. So like this information is being displayed entirely differently in two different formats or in two different cells that should be right next to each other. And here you have the title. We got it from here. Thank you for your service. Beauty Behind the Madness is below. We need these things together because this is one cell of information and we're going to pour photos and data into it, and it needs to display the same each time. So I'm going to kick this back because I think this is a vital lesson to learn. If there's anything I can tell you from what you'll see with what you're going to see from Eve and Kara today is if they were in this situation where they were redesigning each cell of their projects that they're working on, the Fresh Market project which they're working on, it would be a nightmare. Okay, so here you just have a couple of albums, and those albums are to be displayed the same. Okay, because this is a list view. All right. So let's get this together, all right? And I'm going to kick that back, and we'll chat further on that. Obviously, we talked about spacing here. So let's jump into. It looks like Kara's here, all right? And Kara, you've got the styles created for Fresh Market, and it looks like you've got a few different color styles here. The orange and yellow is your this real warm, vibrant color scheme. Feels really fall, to be honest with you. Fall's not a bad thing. And then you've got a number of text styles here. I'm just curious about assets. Yeah, you haven't gotten too far into that, and that's fine. These are all wireframing components. I want to take a look at what you've got here. Okay, so you're starting to kind of get some ideas together for back to Katie. You can see right away how Kara is handling recipe title 1 line, recipe title goes here 2 lines long. It's everything's starting in the same spot, and then the flex point is here. So she's not like thinking, oh, I'm just going to hold that space. She's thinking, okay, well, it's just going to expand down and push down. That's fine. The trick here, though, is the recipe title is using a color. It's using the same font at the same size consistently throughout. Okay? So that's one of the things that I want to make sure that we're really getting ingrained in our heads as we're moving through this. The style, we're going to leverage styles to create components to create our design. So Kara, I really feel like this is moving in the right direction. This looks like some sort of maybe this is like the native state for a selection, and then I hover over it, and then I've selected it. So if that seems like where that's going. You've got kind of some form design going on there. Fresh market. What font did you end up going with here? That's head hero. Okay. That's Work Sans. Sorry, I'm just taking a look at a couple things. And this is Merriweather. Okay, well that's nice. Yeah, that's nice. This you can get away with this, by the way, Kara, as it currently stands, because you've kind of handwritten it. You know, if you had a J here, that'd be a problem. Okay, so just keep an eye out for that. I do this all the time where I like make my heads really tight, but be careful in areas where it's not a hero unit and you're going to have data flow into that. It's kind of the problem I was talking about with Katie. There are things that when you don't have complete control, leaving it that tight could be a problem, but I'm sure you're aware of that. Here, it's kind of interesting. The how it's funny because it feels like these are constrained, and I think it's all the air that's here, and then the circles. You know, I'm not sure if you know, if you just move these out for a second. Yeah, that now it's got similar air, but here it doesn't. And I think some of that is the icon in one, it's very square, where these all have a lot of clearance, but this one doesn't. Just something to look at, because it's that one little spot that's tightening this up. And otherwise, I think you're on the right path. You know, obviously you've got a lot of work to do with components, but I can tell in looking at this that you know, what I would suggest doing is, and I think I've mentioned this, I'd work on the big components first, like what's on every page. Well, every page has a nav bar, and every page has a footer. Okay, we'll knock those components out first and like begin applying across. And then from there, you know, focus on the things that are going to happen again and again and again, like these form elements, right? Now the question I've got is, are you going to want all the form elements to have that round an edge? I don't know, because there's a lot of like label and then dummy element. It's like, well, does label and is that how it should be? I don't know. The reason you're forced into that is because of how round this form element is. So just keep that in mind as you're moving forward. I like the roundness because it lines up with your buttons here, but it's just something to think about when you get into a space where you've got a bunch of form elements. Okay, so that said, oh hey, looks like Luigi's thrown in a preference test too. Well, look at him go. All right. Over in the general channel, if you're watching this, in the Discord channel, Luigi has thrown a preference test in. Go give that a look. Kara, keep building. I think you're well on your way now. Kara had an interesting sequence of events involving her design, because she had landed. She had like 3 really good designs. She had this like really nice pink color that really was distinctive, and like nobody liked it. I liked it, but nobody else did, and that's typical. I got to be honest with you. I will like, oh gosh, I like that one. No one else likes it. I've had that happen to me so many times. But that's why I go get data. That's why I go get information, and I get feedback. So, Kara, keep building. You're doing good. Let's go over here to. Sorry, folks. Sometimes it just moves away from me. Oh, well, that wasn't what I was looking for. All right, James had Squawk in here, and I still think that we're too deep on the hero here. Like I would go maybe here, like crop that, maybe crop it here. Something to give you a sense of what you're looking at, without having to scroll to get to what it is. Okay. I think you've done a good job of, I love the walkthrough here. This allows us to really quickly see what's going on. It's a nice prototype. I think you've cleaned up a lot of the issues that you had were related to Medium. It had nothing to do with like your desire to make it funky. Medium is not a great design tool. It's not meant for us to come in and like, oh, hey, we're gonna put this here and put that there. Medium just like, oh, put a photo here, drop some text in, and go. So that you don't have a lot of control. And if you try to do too much with it, it gets really fussy. So you've dropped in. Let's see here. Here's your problem solution. So Squawk, what it is. Okay, so that's a nice addition. The duration, the problem, your solution. Few reflections, feedback is essential. Exploration of the ideation before ideation. Usability testing before visual design. Nail the design system. Okay, and now the context. That is a good setup for this. Okay. Because and I think the labeling helps. Like you didn't say reflections, and then you get down here to the context. So you're setting up. This is what we've had before. The business impact. This is important to point out because you want to, what is the return on investment here? Is it just designed to make pretty? No, that we're trying to do this thing because we want to help people discover these podcasts. So that's where you get into the engagement and how this helps the business of podcasting. Choose the correct social identity. Competitor testing, how people are handling this. It's interesting. Ideation and interface. I don't necessarily know if this is it almost feels like this is text that I'm supposed to read. That's above. I think it's easier to follow these through, and then I can come back to these. So I would ditch this one because the way it sets up, I'm reading it when I don't think I'm really meant to read. Like I'm reading it as if it's part of a paragraph, or it's like part of the process story, and it's not necessarily. As a listener, and I remember before you had it like over here, and from that perspective, it you can follow it through. I don't know if I do that same thing with it on top, but I know that I get what I do get is I get grid, different grid, but grid and circles, circles and grid, circles and grid. Oh, this is a progression. Okay. This I can't logically make that leap, even though you and I both know that's what that leap is. I can't expect somebody to logically make that leap. I can anticipate that they can figure that out that these are related. Okay, so minor thing there, but I would streamline that because I think this is going to get in the way of people seeing this progression, even though it's technically part of the same progression. If you wanted to say 1, 2, 3, 4, I guess you could number them, but it's like, where do you put the number here? You know. All right. We keep going. I like the fact that you've linked here to additionals. Obviously, when you get into doing this on your own, you'll create a button or something. You won't have to link to it like this. I do like the fact that you've podcast tab, user page, podcast player. That helps people understand what it is that they're looking at. Without you doing that, it's just pages, and I'm not sure what they do. And as you come down, and this is kind of the designation. I would want this to be like when you begin building your own portfolio. I'm hoping that you have more control over the size of the typography. I don't mind the way you've displayed it, but the size is, I want these things to be, this should not be larger than that. It's medium though, so you're kind of working with what you got to work with. App testing in seconds. I like the fact that you've laid out for people, how long it was taking people to find guest podcasts in these different platforms, and you're showing Squawk as the leader in each of these. Maybe Pocket Cast was beating you a bit there, but you win in everything else. And then you're showing the interactions. So I think this is really strong. Minor, hey, thanks, and Trevor Young, way to get in there. I don't know Trevor, but I'm sure Trevor's awesome. So that said, I think this has a lot of impact, has a lot of potential. I would make a few adjustments. But it's a very few adjustments, and they're mostly visual at this point. It's like you've got the ordering right. I just want to be able to get that. Basically, if I had this, I'd be happy. If I had this, also become something other than an egg. And I don't know why everybody went with the egg motif. It's Twitter did it. Medium's doing it. Can't remember. Are Medium and Twitter related? I think they are. I think it's maybe Ev Williams. I don't know. Okay. Eve. Okay, so Eve has got a couple things here. Menu selection screen is in progress, but should give an idea what the overall look and layout. Menu on popover window has been added. Okay. Sign up screen and plan selection pages are also ready for review. All right. Do these screens need footers? Minimum version of the main one? Question mark. Would love your thoughts on the three above. If there are improvements to be made. Okay. Well, let's. Hey, there's a video forthcoming. Not done with that yet. Man, Figma has just. Okay, it's over here. Again, I'm not sure why things move around quite as much as they do, but they do. All right. Hey, let's use the Eve trick. That Control G. Hey, look at Eve. Look at Eve helping me out, huh? She's the greatest. You're all the greatest, really. I get to make bakery jokes with Eve though, which is always fun because she giggles. Let's hop in here. So plans. There's a lot of visual cohesion here. You can definitely follow from the cover to the interior. There's a lot more of the pastel there's a lot more pastel here than there is on the front, which I don't necessarily think is bad. I think the pastel comes in as you get lower, so that's fine. You pick it up pretty quick. Let's dive in deeper. Okay, so now we're getting into, oh, hey, look at this. Okay, here's on the menu. Dishes, sandwiches, salads. I love the little modules that you're dropping in. They add a lot. Okay, so now this is the first time we've seen the pop over here. So I'm guessing the interaction is I click on, yeah, rice paper sushi rolls, which Eve's got a fancy old delivery service here if I'm getting rice paper sushi rolls. But I click on this, and then I jump in, and this is like really nice. There's some interactions here, which that works. The thing I would say is you've got a lot of touch points that are inside of a popover. Careful with that, because at any point in time, if I click on the screen and I could pop out of this. Obviously, you got the X there. Also, I don't think that you don't want this popover having to expand. Like, I would just make it the length that it needs to be, so that if I expand this, like, that information's got room to show up. But it looks nice. Let's continue mowing through here. Okay. So here's the sign up page. As we sign up, we get, okay, so this is the plan. So we're back again. She's reusing that module. So choose a meal, select the number of meals. So if I hit, the question here is, if I hit select, does that automatically move me to the next one, or is it something where I hit like I choose a size and I choose a meal and then I hit next? Like, because I would worry that if I haven't chosen, like, it seems like because there's multiple touch points on this interaction, I'm going to have to choose one of these two and then choose one of these three and then hit next. Because if you trigger off of, if I just come down to hitting 4 meals, we don't know necessarily if I've selected the meal size that I'm wanting to select. Equally, what if I click this thinking that, am I going to see some more information, and then it immediately forwards me on? I don't necessarily think that's what your user is going to want. So I would consider having some sort of next button because there are multiple selections here. All right. If this was first, choose a meal, small, large. Next, choose number of meals, 3, 4, or 2, 3, 4. All right. But because there's multiple touch points, I think you need a next. All right. Up here, back to the form. This is working. I do wonder if you need the boxes on sign up with the Facebook, sign up with Google. You don't have the boxes up here, so I'm not really sure why you would have the boxes down here. Although, now that I think about it from a consistency standpoint, if we come back and we look at, like, basically how these boxes are this is a secondary selection, this is a primary selection. So I'm gonna retrace my standing there and just say, no, you don't need it. Footer, I wouldn't worry about it. They're not on the sign up page for a footer. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. And if I click Healthy Eats up here, I'm sure it'll take me back home. So let that go. Let's see. And it looks like you're still mowing through. So, there's a lot of work going on here. The one question I have is, from a component standpoint, how are we doing? And I see some navigation here. I see, okay, so I see this is the hover, this is the pricing. This is meal select. So you're going through and okay, here are the toggles. So like you got a tooltip if you need that. Icons are there. Your illustrations are all there. This is really nice, Eve. Overall, this is solid work. And the thing, here's your accordion labels, blurbs, breadcrumbs, and the breadcrumbs. In case you're wondering what that is, that's up here. You know, welcome, plan, meals, cart, checkout. It's just showing you the steps in the process. Eve, I like it. I think that you've got a really strong system going here. Again, my main concern is that we're in certain areas we might need to do a little more confirmation with the user to make sure that oh yeah, you know what, you selected that thing, you know, down here, like, oh yeah, you have selected your plan and your meals, and now you want to move forward. Or a number of meals. I know you select meals later, and then over here, I'm just trying to make sure that there isn't like a select this meal. It just looks like this is like a preview. So I would expect this shape to kind of, if this is your preview, I would expect it to pop up in other places. So keep that in mind. But overall, this is really coming together well. I think you're establishing a clean hierarchy, your consistency in your visual design. So the only thing I would really look for, Eve, is as I switch back, the only thing I would look for is I would look for you to really consider those interactions, because there may be that the thing that you don't know as you're going through and creating a component library is, okay, so I've created all the components. Like Kara's creating styles, Eve's creating components. Does the prototype work? And ultimately, until you tie these things together, you won't know whether the prototype is going to, quote, work. But we tested the wireframes, okay? This isn't the building up the components for the prototype that you're making now. We're going to test it again, but now it's going to be more like a fully baked out concept versus just the wireframes you tested before. But we spec it out, we build the wireframes, we test those wireframes, we come back through, we layer in and adjust, and then we build our styles, we build our components, and then we finish the prototype and we test it again. You test it multiple times. Testing is not a one and done thing. We go again and again and again. And post launch, probably test it again. But then you'll be testing with, a launched product. And what you're hoping is that each time you test, you're hoping you knock down the gremlins in the design. Okay? What you don't want to do is get to the final version, get it out in the field, and then discover it's broken. Okay? Because if that happens, you either didn't test enough or you changed something in between and then didn't test the updates. Okay? So, great work all around. Thank you to Eve, Kara, James, and Katie. Katie, there's a lot you can learn just by watching what Kara and Eve are working with right now. They're basically executing on the information design principles that you're walking through at the moment. What you'll find is that if you can like ratchet in, kind of lock in consistency, your designs will improve infinitely. Okay, so consistency and spacing. Basically, it's funny. There's a tweet that I've included in the curriculum somewhere. It says, 99% of design is just lining things up. Okay, but lining, it's not as simple as that. It's lining the right things up, and if you can do that, the sky's the limit. All right, so that's going to do it for today's edition of the Feedback Loop. I've appreciated having you all aboard today. Luigi, I'm going to go take your preference test right now. And for everybody else, Lisa, I'll see you in a little bit. And be on the lookout for some curriculum updates today. I've been very busy. See you folks soon. Take care.